Welcome to Worse Than the Borg, the Star Trek podcast for everyone. We unpack new episodes of Star Trek with Star Trek fans new and old. And each week we raise funds for causes near and dear to us: solidarity, reconciliation, and justice. I am Captain Shane Holland, and I am here, as always, with my number one, Ron Sly. Hello, Ron.
Hello.
And, of course, our chief engineer, Ravi Joshi. Hello, Ravi.
Aye, Captain. Or is it two eyes? Aye. I can't remember.
One eye is enough. We are here to talk about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, and I am super excited today to welcome aboard this week's special guest and another one of my co-hosts from a different podcast, Ambassador Andrew Wheeler. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, how are you all?
I am so great. It's great to see you.
We never to be here.
It is lovely. We always, Andrew, you and I record without the added benefit of video. So this is one of the rare times where I actually get to see your face when we're talking to each other.
Oh, I hope it's as perfect as you remember.
It is. Collectively, we are worse than the Borg. Now, to start off, Ron, would you be able to lead us off with our commitment to reconciliation?
Absolutely. This mission log is being recorded on Treaty 13 land, and the participants are committed to reconciliation here on Earth. We believe the United Federation of Planets would fully support the United Nations Declaration on Indigenous People. All tuned-in Terrans are encouraged to participate in the direct action discussed later in this log.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ron. The first thing I want to know, Andrew, what is your history with Star Trek? Have you been watching it forever like I have, or is Discovery kind of new for you?
You know, I was listening to last week's episode, and I think it was your guest CJ that was talking about how she had the archetypal experience of a Star Trek listener, and I think my experience is very similar to that, which is I grew up with The Next Generation. I watched that airing on the BBC. I watched Deep Space Nine, I think, on DVDs that I borrowed from a friend. And then after that, it's semi that Voyager didn't click with me, and semi that just it's back in the day. Listeners today won't know this, but back in the day, you had to find TV shows by by them being on at certain times or being on certain channels, and that was the only way to watch them. And yeah, I don't think I had the channel that Voyager was even on, so that's where I dropped off. But then came back, as so many people do, with the new era of Discovery and Picard and Lower Decks.
Excellent. So you're well versed. That's fantastic. What did we think of this week's episode? I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good.
Not the ringing endorsement as last week. I'm sure we will find out. I mean, I am enjoying it. I'm liking what they're doing. I've got lots to say about where we ended up, but in all, I think like they have done a lot of really great work to bring us back to TNG era feel. And you know, even if I have some quibbles with this episode, as a like body of work, this season is really turning out to be something that I know I'm going to cherish for a long time. So
that's awesome. That's great to hear. How about you, Ravi?
My partner immediately said at the end of the episode that this was one of her favorites of the season, and I appreciate it. It's well paced, well structured. It was fun. There were some really great moments, but I agree that this is sort of, as was episode 2, a needed pacing episode where you need to get through a really good story. You don't need to blow off the roof. You need to entertain people. There needs to be a cool concept, and you need to advance the overall the plot of the season. I think this did all of that, and there were some really good moments that I'll get into later in the episode. But overall, I'd give it a really solid mark, maybe an A-. And it's just something we need to come to expect from this as this series matures, because remember, we've had 2 knock off your socks each episode through season 1 and 2, and I think that we're going to have to come to expect and enjoy these well-paced, well-structured episodes.
I think regular listeners might know that I am also watching with my partner, and both Ravi and I have non-Trekkie partners, so who are watching with really fresh eyes.
Same here.
And it's interesting to hear that Kristen really liked this episode because my partner was not as impressed.
Oh.
So I don't know why. We'll have to get them on to talk about it.
Yes,
Maybe they
we
could be
will.
future guests.
Andrew, you're our guest this week.
Yeah, I thought it was a solid mid-season kind of, adventure of the week episode. What's interesting to me is that it felt like it felt like an episodic episode in a show that's been very arc oriented, and there was arc stuff in there, but it kind of felt like we were arriving at a status quo in a show that's never had a status quo really, or has never sat in a status quo for very long. And I'm curious to know if that's really where we are now, or if we're being sort of lulled into a comfort that's going to be whipped away from us again.
This is all so exciting. I can't wait to talk a lot more about this. But before we move on to our full out episode discussion, I just want to bring up a couple things that have happened this week that kind of relate to Star Trek. So first off, we just learned that coming December 7th, they're coming out with the actual 3D chess set from the original series. So you can buy this through the Noble Collection, and it will be available for the holidays. So keep an eye out.
I feel like I've definitely read that like canonically has no rules. Not canonically, but like in real life, it has no rules. So I guess they've written some rules for it.
I hope so. If I were to receive this as a present, hint hint, I would hope that some instructions come with it, because 3D chess doesn't seem like it makes a hell of a lot of sense in
I've
practice.
heard the actors just like move it around, whatever seems dramatic.
I kind of feel like this is somebody's job in the universe is to go back through Star Trek episodes and to redevise rules for like different, like Parisi Square and all the different games that nobody knows or understands, and just come up with rules and play them. Have we not established? People have probably already done this, but there must be a rule set out there.
I hope so. And the other thing that happened this week, well, sadly, we lost Alex Trebek, the longtime host of the fabulous game show Jeopardy! As Canadians and as lovers of knowledge, I think this hit us pretty deeply. But already there is a petition out there to get LeVar Burton to replace Alex Trebek as host of Jeopardy! And I, for one, signed. I would love to see that man in a role like that. I grew up with reading Rainbow and Star Trek, so obviously I've grown up with LeVar. I think there could be no person more perfect for the role at this time. What do you guys think, Andrew?
Well, this is again where my being a foreigner comes into play. I have no emotional relationship with Jeopardy, and I have no emotional relationship with reading Rainbow. We had a show called Jackanory in the UK, which was a similar like reading stories to kids show. Patrick Stewart did one of the stories on that, so there is a connection back. People, Judi Dench did a story. A lot of people have been on Jackanory across the years, but I'm sorry, I have no nostalgia for reading Rainbow or Jeopardy. I support you.
I don't want to jump ahead, but like Star Trek is giving us like great actor choices, which we'll talk about this episode, I'm sure. But can we get Judi Dench on this series?
Yes.
That would be the be all end all. As for
Michelle Yeoh must have her number, right? So,
Oh, absolutely. They work very closely together.
There's got to be a WhatsApp group.
I think we should put the link to the petition in the show notes, Shane. We might as well. I think that they probably won't pick him, unfortunately, but they will find somebody of his caliber. I don't think that they can just like give in to the fans like that. But
yes, of course.
I would love it. And he's so underutilized just in pop culture now. And I feel like he's starting to pick up steam again. So I can't wait to see what he's going to be working on in the future. Do you know something, Ravi?
Well, I mean, has everyone seen Weird City?
No.
Okay, this is one of the unheard gems of YouTube Premium, which has functionally shut down. They've moved away from paid content. But Weird City was I think a 6-episode or a very limited episode run, and it's written by I think Jordan Peele, and it's one of the funniest, most deranged things. And LeVar Burton plays a reoccurring mastermind, eccentric scientist in it. The whole series is thoroughly watchable, bizarre. You will love it. Weird City, I think is what it's called.
I will give Jordan Peele and LeVar Burton 6 episodes. Yeah, I'll watch.
Yeah, I'm looking up to make sure I didn't even get the name wrong, but I think it's called Weird City, and I don't know who's carrying it now that YouTube Premium is kind of less of a thing. But yes, 2019 series and called Weird Series.
Cool.
Weird
I'm
City.
definitely going to check that out. It's right. Sounds right up my alley.
Mhm.
So after this episode discussion, be sure to play along with our weekly Trek trivia, and you can help support this week's direct action. Let's take a very quick break, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Worse Than the Borg. We are going to break down this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 5, Die Trying. Ravi, do you want to give us a little rundown of what happened?
Absolutely. Spoilers ahead. Using Senna's memory, Adira Tal guides Discovery to Starfleet headquarters. Starfleet Commander-in-Chief Charles Vance asks for Burnham, Saru, and Adira to beam over to their base, where Adira is taken away for medical testing. Vance informs Saru and Burnham that the crew will be interrogated and reassigned while their ship is studied, which Saru agrees to in the hopes of earning the trust of Starfleet. Realizing that Starfleet is dealing with a health crisis that could be solved through the seed archives aboard the USS Tikov, Burnham receives approval from Vance to take the Discovery crew there with the spore drive and retrieve its seeds. They find the occupants of the Tikov dead, except for a man who is fatally injured. He is the same species of security officer Nan, who decides to remain on the Tikov to ensure that his family receive a proper burial. Discovery returns to Starfleet with the seeds and an antidote for the health crisis and is synthesized. Vance agrees that the Discovery crew may remain together, but they must answer to him. And that is our wrap up for this week's episode.
I feel like that wrap up doesn't even really get into what actually happens in this episode, which is a lot of dealing with trust issues and themes of home and family, death and loss, tone policing. But we will get into it. This episode was directed by Maya Vervillo. The teleplay was by Sean Cochran, and the story by James Duff and Sean Cochran. I want to start off by talking about what I feel like was one of the best science fiction-y scenes we've seen in ages, with the reveal of Starfleet and the Federation in the donut in space.
It was amazing. It was like
Yeah.
every Star Trek fan's like, I'm gonna wet dream. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like I tried to avoid saying that, but I couldn't think of a replacement. And like they listed off so many things that we won't get into. Like, this is the Star Trek podcast for everybody, but the ones that want to go into the details can go into the details with this. There was so much packed into that, like, I don't know, 30-second scene of them just like being amazed. And I gotta say, like, the writers are like, we talk about the Bechdel test on this show quite a bit, but this, like, the Bechdel breakdown, like, smashed it. Like, the entire bridge crew, Reese, Bryce, Saru, they didn't really speak during that. It was all the women sharing all of their expertise and making predictions about what was out there. And it, is almost, you don't even notice it anymore on this show, because they've put such an effort into normalizing just regular women having regular conversation. And it's like, maybe we're getting past the point where we can even worry about that stuff anymore. Anyway.
No, you're 100% right. It really feels like we have moved so far from the TNG days where female characters are only allowed to talk about their feelings. Now we actually get into an arena where we are seeing women as leaders in science, and female pilots, and women in charge of naval Starfleet vessels. This is a universe where women are equal to absolutely everyone, where society just seems more equal and just. Although even there, we will get to it. Ravi, what did you think of this opening?
This was the most nervous I've been throughout all of Star Trek's openings, not because things seem to just go normally and well. They started off the episode with just a number of things that would normally be the setup for something going catastrophically wrong, and everything seemed to just work out fine until at least the intro of the whole TV show. And I felt myself totally gripping, just absolutely so nervous for the cast, for the crew going in. So I enjoyed it. I thought that as an opening first part of the episode, it really set it up. And indeed that flyby where as Ron has already told me that I need to actually go through and read some blogs along the side to catch all the Easter eggs that were there. That's not my strength for our listeners, but at the same time I think there's a lot that could be unpacked there, so I'm going to go through shot by shot, frame by frame.
I'll be talking a bit more about it, but Andrew, did you happen to catch any of the little Easter eggs in that scene?
I mean, I saw a Voyager. I feel like that's not an Easter egg. They name it by name.
Yeah, that's not so much.
The Voyager J.
I'm curious how much of it is going to be set up and how much of it is just like, Easter eggs, just giving people something cute and fun to talk about. Like, do you show the Voyager that big in the frame without coming back to it is what I'm curious about.
I can't imagine that they're going to come back to it. I think that was just a nod for the fans, which is actually one of my criticisms of this episode, in that a lot of the things I loved about this episode really did feel a bit like fan service, and plot points weren't necessarily earned. That's more towards the end of the episode, but this was one of those scenes that I loved to watch. I did that frame by frame thing this morning and tried to see what I could find. And it's really fun, but I mean, it's silly. And no, we are never going to be talking about what the exploits of the Voyager J crew are like. If the USS Constitution is essentially the Enterprise of its generation, I don't think we're ever going to get the answers that we want here.
I just appreciated the way Tilly also had to count to get to Jay. She's like, oh yeah, that was 10. And those are moments that just make me go, oh yeah, okay, these are human beings. It was such a believable moment, because who's going to remember that Jay is somewhere in the alphabet around then?
Yes.
Well, I mean, to Andrew's point, like OO actually says, after Tilly says to Jay, like, we have to like hear those stories, and like just throws it out into space, and we're like, yeah, but like, how are you going to do that? We don't need. We have one Voyager story, and then there's 11 now, and it's just that ship, and unless maybe the Voyager J is the set of Prodigy, and our Janeway is a emergency command hologram.
Oh my god, I would love that. Don't even tease that, Ron.
I just thought of it now. Who knows?
Well, you should talk to the writing team before they get to work on it. There's actually a lot of overlap this season so far in general with Voyager. This crew has been lost for the first half of the season. I actually just watched the first episode of Voyager this morning before we started recording. And yeah, there's definitely a fish out of water element that everyone experiences in that entire series that has been really reflected in the first 5 episodes of Star Trek Discovery, which is and this sense of home really drives home, I think, midway through, like, oh, this could be kind of a stable adventure style series that we've, or episodic style series that we've seen in the past. But
I think that Andrew's point about this is probably right too. I think maybe we are being lulled into a bit of a complacency, so we will see how the rest of this series goes, but as an episodic bit, I did enjoy it a lot. So
yeah, me too. When they arrive on the Federation headquarters, Adira Tal is almost immediately taken away to undergo a physical, and I'm just going to speak as a queer person. That was very uncomfortable for me, as a non-binary person, being told, okay, well, now you go with the medical team so that they can inspect you from head to toe. And there was no discussion, there was no fight back. Michael kind of just gave her a knowing, like, oh, you better go with it. But I don't know, that really brought up something in me where I was very, very angry for Adira.
And there was something else queer happening in that moment too. The Senatal and the commander in chief, like there was something there.
There was something there. Yes.
Yeah, like maybe even like relationship wise,
I got that. Did you, Andrew?
Yeah, I certainly on the second watch, it felt to me like there was more than he used the word. What was it? Familiar.
Yes.
Familiar.
Yes.
You were from
You and I are not close.
Yes. That's a very specific choice of words, especially in a future where everyone is queer.
Yes.
Right.
And if Senna and the commander were truly a thing in the past, Andrew, everyone is queer. Like Oo and Detmer, are they a thing, or are they just like?
They are absolutely. We've had this discussion. There is no way that those two aren't either a couple already or about to become one. They are in love with each other.
Shane knows that I'm already building up years of Reese Bryce fan fiction in my mind, completely unsupported by anything that's happened on the screen.
Totally
I just enjoy thinking about it. But,
I mean, we can make that happen in our minds, sure. I also appreciated that annoying EMH characters still exist in the 32nd century. That they decided that the EMH from Voyager was actually the perfect unit, had the perfect amount of sass and level of personal space intrusion. I thought that was a really neat little throwback once again to Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
has consent just become something culturally that we've eroded completely?
Well, look at the world we're in now, Andrew. Maybe. When they finally get the approval to go on this mission, and we get that gifable moment of Michael Burnham saying "Black Alert," I jumped out of my seat. Ravi, we nearly talked about this before. What was your initial thought?
Well, I think we've just got I think Black Lives Matter has a new battle cry. Like, I think if you wanted a hashtag to end all hashtags, Black Alert is so perfect. And I just enjoy how much it's been a seed that was planted for 2 seasons and didn't have any context or meaning until this moment, and it was so good. It's almost like Beyonce's, formation type thing. It's just sort of this thing that I think it transcends Star Trek. Oh, it's some there's a GIF. I can't find the GIF at the moment, but a GIF will be made momentarily.
Yeah, it'll be made. The world needed it, and like the show itself, getting Burnham into that commander's chair has. I really thought it would have happened mid-season, season 1. That's kind of what my perception was. And so the show is so good at driving plot points and stuff is happening, but like this arc coming to such an iconic moment in time that was, I believe filmed before all of the demonstrations this summer, like another nod to the writers for being prophetic, and Sonequa Martin Green just delivers over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Always consistently really giving us the best in this show. There was a few things actually that kind of made me think maybe this episode is a little inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement. When they first arrive at Federation headquarters, Admiral Vance says that your mere presence here is a crime. And you can immediately see Michael Burnham taken aback and herself in this world. She's been here 1 year before the rest of the crew, and she's already let go a lot of Federation values, Starfleet values, and for her to be basically tone policed and told, hey, you better watch what you say because you shouldn't even be here, that was also kind of a moment where I thought they must know what they're saying here. Do you agree, Andrew?
Yeah, the phrase "your presence is a crime" that sent a shiver down my spine. That's a very specific choice of language again. That both in terms of race, in terms of queerness. There have been many people who have been told that their presence is a crime over the years. Some not even generations past. that the whole air of Starfleet of the future feels very sinister to me, and I'm not sure how to compute it. Ravi was talking about the tension in that pre-title sequence and how none of that paid out, but that means none of it got released either. And I don't know if we're supposed to trust Starfleet. I don't know why we would trust Starfleet other than the institutional trust that they have in something that they no longer recognize. So yeah, as queer people, as people of color, they're walking into a room where they're being told you are criminalized, and they are looking to an authority that they don't recognize and saying, oh yeah, sure, we want to work under you and be reintegrated into your systems. And I don't buy it. I don't get it. I don't trust it at all.
Same. So I will get to one of my main criticisms about this episode is that at the end, Saru is put into a position where he has to say, look, we are both outsiders. You're a Black person. I'm essentially a person of color, but I'm in charge here and I have to go by these rules that are being forced upon us, basically. And Saru then is given the task of tone policing Burnham instead, saying, you need to watch what you say because it affects me. And I don't know, I've been in work situations where I've been working with people of color who absolutely don't care about the Black Lives Matter movement and who will say to you, you should just watch your mouth and this is our place and you should just listen to the big boss. And I found it very concerning how this is reflecting some real world situations. Ron, do you have anything to add to?
I think that Andrew hit it right on the head, and I think we kind of know from I don't know if you've seen the short treks, Andrew, but there's a one where the ship is another millennia in the future, but it's alone, and it is boarded by a man who says he's from a peaceful planet, and fighting a war against the Vidrash, which is a pidgin for Federation. And so I think what we're seeing is our antenna for this stuff is rightfully pinging, and they're planting the seeds for where that would eventually go. I think something that's really concerning is the entirety of Starfleet and the civilian government of the Federation are all there in one place. And Burnham even refers to them as like being the same, like the one microorganism. And the we all know that we need that separation of church and state. And if the Starfleet
military and state,
if the militaristic aspects of Starfleet start to infect the Federation and we start to lose the civilian control, I'm definitely curious to see where they're gonna take it. And I think like our little queer people of color radar is rightfully pinging that this is an unhealthy work environment.
I love that that's how we're putting it. Perfect.
I also just want to shout out once again Doug Jones for his delivery during this episode, because while the substance of what he might have been saying might have been problematic, he delivered it with this authenticity and this warmth that you wanted to listen to him, which is almost problematic in and of itself. But Doug Jones, yet again, for acting into this character so well, and to the writers who have backed him up, he really is blossoming further into this role. And I'm so excited to see where it goes, and I want to follow him. I want to follow Saru so badly.
This is turning from a Star Trek fan podcast to a Doug Jones fan podcast. I think that he, this is a like role of a lifetime, and he's leaning into it. He's so amazing. When they first arrive on the Federation, that the main ship or whatever, and they come in and he has that swaying walk, like he just embodies this character so fully. And even under all of that prosthetic, the like hope and wonder when he's told that Kaminar, his home planet, did eventually join the Federation. You can see it under all of that plastic. Like he truly is a talent.
Oh yeah,
I think of myself as one of Captain Saru's arms. I'm just sort of following him, wafting in the wind. Take me with you. That's what I'm saying all the time.
Oh, I love it. I love Doug Jones. I love Tig Notaro once again, stealing the show with just 2 minutes of screen time at most. Her desire for rise and party drugs and something to snack on. Really, really love that moment.
Snacking lesbian representation. We all know her. We know the hungry lesbian.
Yes, we do. So I do want to talk about one of the other things that kind of got to me this episode, which was the character of Non, who I've really come to love on the show. Being forced to exit, another instance of someone who we really want to see their character develop and evolve, all of a sudden just getting chopped off and sent away on some seed ship, probably never to be seen again. I didn't buy this emotional journey. I'm going to say it felt really forced at the end. Andrew, would you agree?
Yeah, I've said as much that Nan is like, there's something quirky and there's a weird glamour to that character that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know more about her, and I've wanted to know more about her for a long time. And it felt so much like the Arium episode all over again, that it's like, oh, finally we're going to tell you something about this character, and then poof, they're gone.
Airlocked out into space. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at least Nan is alive, and there is. I have more hope than you do, maybe, that we might at least see her again. But we're not going to see her every week. We're not going to see her as a member of the crew. And yeah, you add that to what happened to Landry in the first season. It's just this pattern of these like amazing women who are somehow surplus to the requirements of the show, and I don't like it. I want them to stick around.
Right? It feels like a cop out. But I don't know. Does anyone else have any opinions on this?
I got opinions too, but I'll let you.
Ron, go ahead. Ron, go ahead.
No, it was so good. Like, the actor was so great in this episode. Rachel, I can't pronounce her name, Anchiel or something like that.
Ancheril.
And Ancheril, and that, like, Andrew just summed it perfectly. There's this like undercurrent of like glamour that just like, you just need to know more about her. And finally we found out about her relationship with her family, her home planet, and then she just like pushed at the friggin' airlock again. Like I read on the internet after this episode that the actor's character, the actor's mother, is somebody that we all have owe a debt of gratitude to. As the fans probably know, but maybe some of the listeners don't, the original Star Trek on NBC was canceled, and then a fan-led writing campaign, largely women, wrote in and saved the show. And this actor's mother was one of those women who wrote in to save the show. And I think, like, for her as an individual human on this planet, like, it's almost like the just like the family connections into it. It's so deep and rich, and like, it's just such a waste to, like, I guess you got a lot of characters to explore in worlds, but
we don't even explore the characters that we have.
Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for letting me get it out, Ravi.
Well, every time they pan around the bridge, I'm just worried that they're going to introduce a new character, that like they're just going to start to drop in. And let's face it, they've got a healthy crop of just sort of lesser known characters that they're just going to start to do these episodes. And actually, it might be in our second episode or our first episode, I was talking about the lack of South Asian representation. Well, Rachel Ancheril is South Asian, and actually I didn't realize until I researched for this episode how many of the bridge crew are Toronto-based actors. This is actually something that I think is worth telling, is the number of really stellar Toronto actors, many of them people of color, and unfortunately their fate seems to be built up in this way and then dropped, and that's really unfortunate. And we had talked about how this was an occurrence, how I even sort of did not see through. I noted that I didn't know that her performance was there, and it's just because it's sort of in the background, just waiting. It's almost like there's a lineup, form an orderly queue until we need a plot point. Okay, now will blow you out the airlock, which is now going to become the trope for killing off a character. So I'm a little disappointed, but I also do want to shout out the whole number of local actors that seem to be making its way into the show. That was a welcome highlight for me.
Yeah, to that point, it was a couple of weeks back that I realized that the actor that plays Reese was in the original Soul Pepper production of Kim's Convenience on stage here in Toronto.
Yes.
So he originated the role that Simu Liu plays on the TV version.
Oh,
Ronnie
wow.
Rowe Jr.
I also wanted to point out that Linus is played by David Benjamin Tomlinson, and I once appeared in a stage production with him.
You can introduce me to Linus? This is crazy.
I could introduce us to Linus. Very
Let's get him on
excited
the
when I found that out. Well, I mean, we worked together once, and I was the subject, and he was the. It's a long story.
Let's put this out there. If you are listening to this and you are currently a Star Trek bridge officer, please reach out to us on Twitter. We'd love to have you as a guest. That's my job in this podcast.
I don't care if you appeared in one frame of the background. I want you on this podcast.
That's a milestone for this podcast. Whenever we get anybody who is worth a frame of Star Trek's time, that's a milestone.
Perfect. Speaking of cameos, David Cronenberg. Ronnie.
I mean, Andrew, I don't know if maybe this is a lost in translation thing for you, but David Cronenberg is a Canadian director who is synonymous with the wild and weird and like creepiness that is out there. And I cannot believe they cast him across a table from Michelle Yeoh. I am absolutely over the moon. I love the scene between them. They had I don't even know if they had chemistry or they're both just like so good themselves that it doesn't even matter. The debrief with Philippa was absolutely so cool, and we actually learned a lot of like kind of deep Star Trek lore in that moment as well. But you know, Cronenberg.
Great appearance.
Did we see the end of that character? Because I don't feel like that was totally resolved. We had the debrief.
No.
There's more to be had there. I hope that wasn't a one and done, because he was so good. He was so just intelligent and creepy, and there was a lot of stuff going on. It was great.
If that moment wasn't the setup for Michelle Yeoh's Star Trek spinoff, then I don't know what is, because we are seeing something happening to that character. We finally see Mirror Georgiou experiencing some kind of anxiety or real break from reality. It was very, very curious to watch this character who's been very steadily witty and present to, start to slip. I'm very excited to see where this goes.
Andrew, did you know who Cronenberg was before today?
I can reassure you, yes, the Cronenbergian body horror has achieved full cultural penetration.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so great. Usually we cannot say that about Canadians. only like 7 or 8 who have truly.
I think Cronenberg is at that Rubicon point where people don't realize he's Canadian because he's that famous.
That's right.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Oh man, and I would love to see that spinoff happen, Shane. And I would love to see some Star Trek directed by Cronenberg. If this isn't like the perfect introduction point, if Michelle Yeoh's first episode of that is directed by Cronenberg, like we can all every nerd can die happy. Like it'll be so good.
I mean, the section of Premise 31 is that they are like the covert ops of Starfleet. So why shouldn't David Cronenberg be involved in something where he could produce something really weird and wonderful for Star Trek? I would love to see that. That's such a great idea.
I'm sure somebody on the production team has had to have had that idea since he's in their orbit now.
Yes.
But I do want to say at the end of this episode, the breakdown that Georgiou has, I rewatched it again today, and it is like a full 20 seconds, and it's so uncomfortable. But is it just that she's lost in her thoughts, or is there something else going on? Like have they like replaced her with something, that was like booting up? Like it was.
Oh,
it was
so
weird.
That's dark. I'm very curious.
Even her hair wasn't moving. It looked like she was truly like stuck. Anyway.
Hmm.
Ooh, well, I mean, they are definitely going to get to the bottom of this plot point. We may shove some people at the airlock, but Giorgio's not going anywhere anytime soon. And we have to find out about what this is all about. I have a feeling it's to do with the mirror universe separating from our prime universe. That this might be some kind of relation to that. There's a lot of talk about the mirror universe in this episode,
including
go for it.
Including the Michelle Yeoh like lands the line when they tell her that there's something in the Terran stem cell that contributes to their behavior, and she says something along the lines of, "You think you can like knock me by throwing me a completely fabricated biological
component
thing.
To my nastiness and inherently bad behavior. I'm extremely wicked, even for a Terran." Sorry, I wrote it down.
Yes, and is it a knock at Star Wars? I don't know enough about Star Wars.
Well, I was about to say, how much, as a fan, how much does this veer too close to the line of midichlorians? Like, how much is this like, oh yeah, we found some biological like, thing that it's like, let it be. And part of this is, this series has done a very good job of not requiring you to know the background knowledge, but the background knowledge, the fan service is there. This is veering a little bit too close to the line for my liking, because you shouldn't be required to know all this. And to some degree, I abstain from watching too many of the accessory current Star Trek. I have watched most of the short tracks, because I kind of think on principle, and this is why it's a good thing that's a podcast for everyone, is you shouldn't have to know these things to really enjoy it. And if they veer too close to that, I'm worried that this will become not quite a Star Trek for everyone. It will become a Star Trek for some, and that is something will be lost.
Well, I think that the writers are like keen to what you're saying, because they, in the writers' room, had that idea, thought it was brilliant. It gives some like, something beyond 1960s like writing for the mirror universe to exist. But they also recognize that so they thought it was such a good idea that they put it in, but they immediately have the most iconic character on the show destroy it. And also, like another iconic moment in this scene, like Michelle Yeoh solidifies her existence as a queer icon, blinking the hollows out of existence. Like it couldn't have been like another gif there.
Oh yeah. Loved to see that. I think that whole scene was my favorite part of this episode. Well, I mean, we have really talked about a lot on this episode already. Why don't we take a quick break and we will come right back. Welcome back to Worse Than the Borg. It is time for our commitment to reconciliation. Every week we ask a trivia question, and if you get it right, we make a donation to our direct action in your name. Last week's question was, Karen Robinson played the Trill leader Pav. She's perhaps most recognizable for playing Ronnie, in which Emmy Award-winning TV series also filmed in Toronto. That was, of course, Schitt's Creek. And we have made a donation to Gender Reveal BIPOC Trans Mutual Aid. Now, in the following audio clip, we ask, who is asking to be called Sir? And we'll play that clip now.
How can we be sure these schematics are accurate?
Sir.
Oh, no need to stand on formality here. Just call me Lek.
No, I meant you should call me Sir.
Don't be ridiculous.
You mean don't be ridiculous, sir.
Gentlemen, please, let's not squabble.
So once again, this week's question in that clip, who is asking to be called Sir? Ron, would you like to tell our listeners who we are supporting this week?
Absolutely, Shane. Our direct action suggestion this week for all our Terran listeners out there is to support Supporting Our Youth, or SOY, which is a group in Toronto which works to support the health and well-being of all queer and trans spectrum youth 29 years and under through programs, groups, events, and one-on-one support. So that money will be well spent if it's yours. And if you don't have it, but you would like to have a donation made in your name anyway, you can tweet, Insta, or email us and provide us the answer to Shane's question.
That's right. You can email us at worsethantheborg@gmail.com or tweet us at worsethanborg on Twitter or worsethantheborg on Instagram. Now we come to one of my favorite segments every week where we ask our guest ambassador, what the Trek? Andrew, we want to know what to you as a somewhat casual viewer made absolutely no sense, was morally questionable, or otherwise completely confusing about this week's episode or the series, or heck, even the whole franchise. Andrew, what the Trek?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to tick most of those boxes because it's about the episode, but also the series, and also all of Trek, and also it's confusing, and also it's maybe morally questionable. The Mirror Universe.
Mm-hmm.
The Mirror Universe came up a lot in this episode, the whole interrogation sequence. The idea that there is another universe where everyone is evil is preposterous. And it works as a one-episode gimmick, and it's cute for a gimmick, and they are now integrating it into the entire mythology of the show, and they are going to subject it to so much scrutiny now by having Georgiou be a member of the cast, by having David Cronenberg interrogate her, by having them literally say that there is a biological determinism towards evil, which is very nasty stuff to be treading into.
Yeah.
Like, how is this going to survive scrutiny, I guess, is my question. Like, can this be made to work?
Well, I feel like the seeds have been sown ever since Deep Space Nine, where they had, I think, 3 whole episodes devoted to the Mirror Universe. However, having said that, you're right. They are putting way too much weight in what is supposed to be a gimmick episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we're right to tear it apart a little. Hopefully by tearing it apart, we can make it a bit stronger. So this episode does bring up a ton of stuff about Mirror Universe episodes past, particularly David Cronenberg's character, the man with the glasses, mentions April 5th, 2063, which in our universe is supposed to be First Contact Day. But in the Mirror Universe, it's the day that Vulcans landed on Earth and were slaughtered by the humans living there. It was actually the basis of the episode In a Mirror Darkly, Part 1 and 2 from Star Trek Enterprise. And to date, that's actually the only episodes that take place entirely in the Mirror Universe.
I mean, Mirror Universe wise, this series has already spent a lot of time in the Mirror Universe. It was a major plot point in season 1. So to me, it makes sense that they're still playing around it. They specifically brought a character out of the Mirror Universe into ours. I think I like the idea of maybe Georgiou leaving being an inflection point, because it also characterizes everything that we see happen in the Mirror Universe from all of the previous shows. So, I think that the writers are giving it a try. They're trying to legitimize this campy idea that they did in the original series for a modern lens. We'll see how it goes. I think that we're being hinted that they've got more ideas. So I think it's a good flag, Andrew.
Ravi, do you have anything to add about the Mirror Universe?
Well, I just want to agree with Andrew for the most part about this piece of canon that the Mirror Universe maybe is taken a little bit too far. It's had its time, and maybe we need to come up with something new. But I also want to plug this short Trek episode, The Trouble with Edward, which talks about tribbles from the original series and expands it into this whole far-flung storyline featuring H. John Benjamin, I might add. And it's a really fantastic episode, but I kind of feel like that's where it belongs, in this 15-minute ha ha ha, wouldn't it be funny if, okay, let's move on and actually write something new. So I have to agree with Andrew and also plug The Trouble with Edward. It's a fantastic short Trek. It's one of my favorites.
That's awesome. I have a feeling that we are not going to be setting aside the Mirror Universe any soon, and that it is definitely going to be a huge part of the Section 31 TV series, but we'll find out. Andrew, do you have anything else that made you ask, what the Trek?
I think the only other thing that I want to mention from my notes is that they have set themselves a real challenge in imagining the future beyond the future. Like that's one of the big challenges that this show is going to keep coming back to, because when you've already marked out a point in the future where certain technologies exist, and then you say, let's go 900 years beyond that point and imagine technology that's going to seem extreme to the people who are from the future. Like as a writer, I don't want to do that. So I don't know how they're dealing with that. And so, that opening sequence where we see the new Starfleet, and they have things like green roofs on spaceships. And it's like, okay, like it's cool, but is that 1,000 years of cool? Like this is a challenge. This is something they're really going to have to struggle with.
I did like the programmable matter floors. Like when you just walk into a room, the floor shows up behind you and the whole room changes to suit, I guess, the need of why you're there. Ravi, you also might have appreciated something there.
Well, given that we're having a bit of a crossover episode between Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, available now where podcasts are published, is James Bond ran into the same problem around Pierce Brosnan, where nothing was unachievable. There was like, this is the Warp 10 problem. I mean, they've already written that Warp 10 is so what are they going to do with all their technology? And yeah, you can have personal transporters and you could do things like that, but 900 years is an awful lot of time. So I wonder if they've actually written themselves, couldn't they have made it like 300-400 years, just a little bit after the last, the most recent one? There's a bunch of things like that that need to be thought through. However, I realize we're kind of just laying them down a gauntlet, and they're probably going to do a great job of it. So they've proven themselves talented before, but all I'm trying to say is check out Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's a great podcast, and
thank you.
And probably going to have to jump through similar hurdles with their struggles with the next James Bond movie coming out. We
definitely
understand. We're not sure when. So.
Well, thank you for that plug. Also, this moves us directly into what I was going to ask. Have we missed anything? Andrew, you brought up your last point, but Ravi, Ron, was there anything that you wanted to talk about before we close out this episode discussion?
I want to shout out to the colorists, the set designers, the costume designers. The Tikov was absolutely gorgeous. It was such it created like such an atmosphere of confusion, but also like that hopeful nature of the seed vault. And like the color palette was very, all of the people and the life was blue, except for instead of the blue flowers, we had red flowers all over the wall. And when they would transport in and out, it was like a shock of yellow. So like very primary colors. I just thought that they did a fantastic job, and I wanted to give it a shout out. Also, the Tikov is a real person, a Soviet astronomer, and he's considered to be the parent of astrobiology. So makes a lot of sense that would be the home of all of these plants.
Very cool.
A cool little real life tidbit for us too. And we also got some great art history lesson from Saru at the very end.
Beautiful.
About perspective.
Did everyone wiki Giotto immediately?
Yeah. And I mean, it is correct, right? Like the shift in perspective, like the creation of the 3-point perspective was really instrumental in human development. Why we're always talking about human development on Star Trek seems to be something we haven't gotten away from.
Yeah. I did enjoy, though, Admiral Vance responding to Saru with, "Where are you going with this? I want to take that soundbite and just drop it into every episode. Every time someone's like, there was a florist in 18th century, okay.
I think it's partially the writers like recognizing that they're putting the cart before the horse over and over again. They've got some great ideas, but they need to rein it in. And I also just want to note the as we get back to TNG episodic flow, obviously with some modern arc, one thing that they are is actually a kind of a break in form for Star Trek, which is great, is they're actually dealing with the impact of traumatic experiences on the people. And in the episodic world of Star Trek gone by, you couldn't really have people, if you're watching Out of Order and people are like sad and then fine, to get away from that, they just made everybody get over it and the episode that whatever trauma happened, for the most part. And to solve that, they've actually done something I think which is really clever, is the conversation about PTSD and dealing with difficult life events is actually happening in every episode, so that there is still that episodic continuity. I think it's a great switch. So kudos to the writers for that, and also a way more healthy way for humans to be dealing with that stuff as well. Like it just exists.
They also have the added benefit of having an episode recap at the beginning of every episode now, which can kind of, set
locate space-time location.
Yeah. Exactly. Ravi, did you want to add to that?
Well, I just want to say, so going against the grain of some of this conversation, I thought I actually had moments where I was sympathetic to Admiral Vance's character. Like, of course, you're not going to just immediately embrace the first 900-year-old vessel. So there were a couple of moments where I'm like, yeah, I agree with them. Like that's the reasonable thing to do. But I think it's actually telling of a theme that I think is really important. Like, I actually think as writers, it'd be too easy to write that that Starfleet has become cynical and has become like evil behind it all. That's actually really worn that part of the rug is actually really worn. And it is more difficult to write Starfleet as an assembly of well-intentioned, well-meaning people who are having to make compromises, and I think they did that with the Earth Defense Force. At the same time, they did not just simply get lazy and say yes, but underneath it all, even though we're optimists and idealists, that's just easy. It's actually way too easy. So I think it's going to be more difficult as they grow the Starfleet universe in this century to actually talk about the complexities and the difficulties and not make them so inherently evil, or actually try to make them idealists, perhaps that have some rough edges. But I think that's going to be a far more difficult task for the writers to do, because otherwise it just gets back into that, Starfleet doesn't mean anything and we're all naive anyways for believing it in the first place. And again, I think that's just too easy. Optimism is a little more difficult than that. And I look forward to them trying to navigate that.
I totally agree with you, Ravi. Like, I appreciate that they're taking a much more nuanced approach to Starfleet than just this black and white. The evil Starfleet we've seen, that's the Terran Empire. That is the first season of the show. That's all the gimmick episodes in series past. But I also agree with you that I would have been totally on Admiral Vance's side if this ship shows up out of the middle of nowhere, like, hey, we're this 900-year-old ship and we just popped up in the galaxy the other day and just thought we'd stop and say hi, and by the way, we after a temporal war, and our ship can move through space and time with this experimental drive that conveniently has been erased from all of the Starfleet records. Yeah, I would be like, who are you? What are you doing? You're being put in the brig, and we are going to figure it out. They are so lucky that they got to go on a bloody mission this episode.
Yeah, by the way, can we have access to your entire database? And no problem. No.
That brings up one of my favorite burns from this episode. Our first Federation act will not be to pilfer its property and violate a direct order. That is a lesson I thought you would have learned by now, Commander.
Oh, man. Papa Saru, man. Yeah.
Remember when Captain Giorgio died because of
your decisions? Yeah, wow. And then she still gets to lead the ship for the first time in her career. Amazing.
And I realize the term may have a weird connotation, but there's this pastoral quality to Captain Saru, and he kind of did that in that moment where it's, oh damn, when he wants to lay it on thick, he can lay it on thick.
Oh yeah. I love Saru as captain. I think I've said everything I need to say. Ravi, did you have anything else you wanted to bring up before we close out?
No, that it was a good episode. I did appreciate it, especially now that we've had a chance to debrief and talk about the parts that we respectively liked.
We actually can't end this episode without talking about, like, it's kind of a gimme. And it's starting to string quite literally the episodes together, which is this the motif of the lullaby, which is being played. I don't know if we have any Battlestar Galactica fans on the line today, but it's giving me a lot of all along the Watchtower vibe, about how all of this is started before and all of this will be again, and maybe it's actually Burnham's mom sending a message through time as well. So I don't know. They're playing it up to something. I think it's like a little bit dorky and kind of below the rest of the caliber of what they're doing. Like this has been like we had an entire
Mystery
sci-fi
season.
Like a sci-fi series did this, like, you know, the music is important thing. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going, but
I was talking about season 2 of Discovery. They've already done this, where they had spent an entire season of the show trying to figure out a mysterious signal that comes from the past.
yeah.
I just want to plug, if you are a Star Trek Discovery producer and you would like Ron's contact information for a writer, I think there's some really important ideas that could be woven in. I did not think of Michael's mother. You know, this is good stuff, man.
I don't know. We'll see. I just think that it I don't know. It's just so kind of boring. You know? And I don't like, you know, I hope that if any like actual person involved in the production of this ever comes across this content, like, please don't take it as shade. I think that the whole thing as a whole, you know, I opened the episode saying it's going to be an important piece of work for me once it's all said and done. But a lullaby, everybody, all species at all times play all the same lullaby. Okay, yeah. I mean, what is that episode in The Next Generation where all of the species race to that one planet, and it's like the progenitor for all. Like, so we've done it. Like, if this
the race
is,
or the chase,
if this is in our genetic code, like, yeah, okay, we get it. It's done. So maybe they've got something, and I'll be eating my words on a future episode.
Probably not. Well, with that, I want to thank once again our very special guest, Andrew. Andrew, how can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Wheeler, Wheeler, and on Instagram at Wheelergram.
Do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Oh, sure. I guess there's a couple of things. So if you're enjoying listening to my voice, you can also check out the podcast that Shane and I do together, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It is a queer take on the James Bond franchise. It just started last week, so you'll be able to pick up the first 2 episodes this week, where we talk about queering James Bond and the queerest moments in the James Bond movie franchises. And as that podcast series progresses, we will start diving into the movies and some other James Bondian themes, all through a distinctly queer lens. I will also mention that last week I had my first ever DC comic book published. So you can pick up Wonder Woman Agent of Peace issue 16. It is a digital exclusive comic, so you can only buy it online at readdc.com or through Amazon or Comixology. It is just 99 cents. It is a very queer story, so please go and check that out.
We will definitely be including a link to both of those things in the episode description of this podcast.
Thank you.
And thank you, Andrew. We are, as always, at Shane Came Back, at Ravi Joshi, and at Ron Sly. And you can follow us all on Twitter at Worse Than Borg and at Worse Than the Borg on Instagram. You could email us at worsethantheborg@gmail.com. And please remember to like, subscribe, and if you could rate us 5 stars, it really helps get people to see this.
Share us with your other nerd friends.
Yes.
More nerds, please.
Tell your nerds. Thank you for listening. We have been Worse Than the Borg, and you have been assimilated into our collective. But resistance is never futile. Hailing frequencies closed.
Bye.